meet Álvaro, and meet Dobby. Today, for the first time, they're trying bikepacking and camping. We'd been waiting for the weather to warm up a little. I wanted their first experience to be a good one, without the long, cold nights that can make sleeping outdoors feel more like a dragging challenge than a fun adventure.
Vale, está la rueda un pelín enganchada. Aquí. Vale.
Going away for a self-supported weekend on a bike isn't a common thing here in Spain, especially not among the circles I grew up around. My family and friends all know what I do and how, even though it can be hard at times, I keep coming back wanting more. But even after years of sharing stories from the places I've discovered on two wheels, almost no one close to me has ever shown much interest in trying it themselves. Only my brother and now Álvaro. He was curious about the whole thing. Although he'd ridden bikes when he was younger, it had been years since he'd done any proper cycling. Still, there was a hint of excitement about getting back in the saddle.
Dobby, que nos vamos de aventura.
This time, with his furry companion by his side.
Venga, vamos. Venga, vamos.
Vamos en la bici. Venga,
Venga.
venga, corre.
A couple of years ago, Dobby was found abandoned alongside his sibling and taken to an animal shelter for adoption. He was scared and shy when Álvaro took him in, but over time he grew into a confident and enthusiastic dog.
Está bien enganchado ahí.
Sí, a ver, no creo que...
Tiene aquí el de la izquierda y el de la derecha. ¿Tú vas bien así?
¿Tú vas bien, Dobby?
Pues ya está, pues nos vamos.
¿Nos vamos?
Nos vamos a la montaña.
Since then, it's become Álvaro's mission to give him the best life he possibly can. And that means bringing him along on adventures whenever he gets the chance. I'd been wanting to come back to this area ever since I rode here for a solo overnighter a few years ago. La Sierra de Irta is one of the last places where this stretch of Mediterranean coastline remains largely untouched, with quiet dirt roads, gentle climbs, and constant views of the cliffs meeting the sea. It felt like the perfect place to bring them along. After all, a manageable challenge and rewarding experience are usually what I'm aiming for. I really had no idea how it was going to go, especially with Dobby, since we'd never done anything like this with him before. But we took things very slowly, making sure he felt calm throughout, and he settled into it surprisingly well.
Dobby. Dobby. Estamos intenso, ¿eh?
With the sun and the heat, we had to make sure he was drinking enough water. He seemed to enjoy the basket and riding up front, but after the first dozen kilometers, he started getting restless, shifting around, like he just wanted to be off and running too. But along the stretch, dogs weren't allowed to roam freely, and with the occasional vehicle passing through, we stayed cautious. So we went for a compromise and let him run alongside us on the leash.
¿Vas a correr?
Te gusta más ir fuera, ¿eh? Venga, vamos.
Venga.
He seemed pretty happy with that.
Guau, cómo tira, ¿eh?
Madre mía. Venga, Dobby, un poco más rápido. Corre.
Corre, Dobby.
To me, it was fascinating to see how much energy he had. For such a small dog, he is surprisingly strong and fast.
Venga, corre. Se va Belén. Venga, vamos. Que se nos escapa. Corre.
Oye, Dobby te está tirando.
Que no, que yo voy pedaleando, de verdad.
We let him get tired and balanced it out with some time back in the basket so he could rest. But what was especially comforting to see was how much Álvaro was enjoying it too, gaining confidence with every pedal stroke. And slowly I started to relax more too, just happy to see it was working for all of us.
A ver, ¿cómo va, Dobby? ¿Tú ves bien? ¿Sí? ¿Cómo va, Álvaro?
Oye, tú tendrás que estirar un poco, ¿no? A ver, ¿cómo se estiran las orejillas? ¿Así? ¿Así se estiran? ¿Tú no estiras? ¿No? ¿Las patillas cómo estiran?
Yo creo que Dobby va sobrado.
Sí. ¿Quién quiere comer? ¡Ting!
Yo quiero comer, la verdad.
The plan might have been a little ambitious, But once you're carrying everything you need to spend the night outdoors, it becomes much easier to adapt as you go. Knowing we had options if we didn't make it to the summit gave me peace of mind and let us enjoy the breaks along the way.
¿Sacamos?
¿Lo cojo yo?
Sí, está todavía enganchado.
A ver, Dobby, no saltes, que te veo venir.
Cuidado, cuidado. Está con sobreanclajes.
¿Ya está?
Ahora sí.
Vale, venga.
¿Cómo? Voy.
I like it when someone isn't afraid to try new things, approaching unfamiliar experiences with an open mind. Whether that's a meal they've never tasted, a sport they've never played, or an adventure they know almost nothing about. As familiar as all of this felt to me after years of bike travel, it was completely new to them.
Hello. Hola. Yay, if you don't mind. Have a good trip. Adiós. Bye. ¿Has visto?
Wow, qué chulo, ¿eh?
Más gente haciendo viajes en bici. Bye.
And the funny thing is that as soon as you try something new, whatever it may be, you start noticing it everywhere.
Our turn to start climbing. Hoping to sleep up in the mountain.
One thing I've started appreciating more over the years is getting to know my home country better. Spain is such a varied place, whether gastronomically, architecturally, culturally, or in terms of its landscapes. Every time I explore a new area, I'm surprised by how enchanting it is in its own way. I have traveled abroad quite a lot over the past few years and seen some incredible places. And while I love discovering new and very different corners of the world, there's something equally special about feeling that same sense of wonder much closer to home.
Corre, corre. Corre. ¿Quieres agua? Venga, toma. Toma agua. Yo también quiero agua. Madre mía, Dobby, cuánta sed.
Getting out of the cities and immersing yourself in the countryside is generally quite easy here, something I'm very grateful for, as you don't have to travel far to feel like you're off on a little adventure in nature. The climbing had started. We were moving at a slow, steady pace, and Álvaro was enjoying the benefits of having a gearbox with a wide gear range to carry them up the mountain. At times I would pull ahead to film them, but we soon started noticing something curious. Dobby would begin whimpering whenever I moved in front. It seemed he preferred being in the lead.
¿Ahora qué?
Ahora que ya estás delante, ya no te quejas.
Claro. Tiene que ir en cabeza él.
A ver si
Pequeñín.
me voy delante, ¿qué pasa?
Eres un actor increíble, ¿eh? Un actorazo.
Oye, Dobby, que la gente no nos va a creer.
¿Si voy para abajo? ¿Qué pasa si me voy para abajo?
By this point, I was starting to doubt whether we'd make it to the top in time.
Llegamos enseguida. Estoy sudando un poquillo.
Las push.
Vamos ahí.
The heat was relentless and we were far away from the top. So it was time to start thinking about a backup plan.
Venga, Dobby. Venga, Álvaro. Venga, Dobby. Arriba.
Cuidado. Venga, Dobby. Vamos arriba.
We were both tired and sweaty, fantasizing about a cold drink and a place to sit in the shade for a while. Fortunately, our backup plan wasn't that far off anymore.
Hemos llegado, ¿eh?
We had made it to an impressive fortress, built by the Moors in the 10th century, now guarding the mountain from the stillness.
Dobby, high five. A ver. Vale, pues vamos a acampar.
Vale.
Creo que para allá.
The mission was to find a flat, discreet spot to set up camp for the night. Ideally out of sight, grassy, and with open views. And as it turned out, we got all three. A good campsite always feels like the biggest reward after a long day on the bike. That's when you finally get to slow down for a moment, reflecting on everything that happened throughout the day.
Bien. Liner.
Después de abajo.
Esta es la base, sí.
¿Quieres dormir aquí? ¿Te parece bien esta cama?
Sí. ¿Te parece bien? ¿Tú duermes ahí?
I had never camped before I started traveling by bike. I still remember that first night, feeling nervous, a little cold, and barely sleeping because of the new inputs and slight discomfort. But I loved the concept of it straight away. There is something magical about crawling into a thin piece of fabric that somehow feels like a safe, cozy home.
Un día duro. ¿Has trabajado muy duro, Dobby?
And I think Dobby felt the same.
Pobrecito.
¿Te gusta?
¿Te gusta nuestra casa? Dobby está en nuestra casa. Si no nos gusta, la hemos liado. Está muy cansado. Día duro, ¿eh? Se ha caído. No sé cómo llenarlo. ¿Te soplas tú?
The dog was exhausted, and so were we. It had turned out to be a more ambitious ride than expected, and the temperatures had caught us off guard. We had brought his blankets so he wouldn't feel too cold or out of place overnight. It wasn't the most compact item, barely fitting in our bags, but it was worth carrying just to see him snuggle up in it. He fell asleep almost immediately, looking completely at ease. It was our turn now to finally flavor that stillness and dig into the food we'd been carrying with us all day.
Yo estoy muerta.
Me estoy acordando ahora mismo de la foto que perdimos.
Esta ya no.
Esta no la perdemos.
Esta no.
Esta se queda así.
Sí que no. Que yo aquí no vuelvo. ¡Hombre!
¿Te lo has despertado?
¿Quién quiere cenar? Bueno, nos vamos a comer la tortilla entera, ¿eh?
Yo creo que
Yo
él se,
pensaba que iba a ser mucho.
él se comía la tortilla entera, ¿eh? Está súper buena, ¿eh?
Gracias por llevar un litro de gazpacho hasta aquí dentro.
De nada. Si no lo disfrutas. Sí, Dobby, yo menos
Dobby.
hablar y más comer, ¿verdad? Sí, yo estoy de acuerdo contigo.
Pero si tú... Bueno,
Es que
sí
no
has
sé por qué
corrido, sí
estamos
que has...
hablando. Tú come, mira, toma. Disfrútalo. No te atragantes, ¿eh? Dobby, 3,
2, 1...
¿Qué ha pasado? Venga, Dobby, vamos a la calle, vamos. Venga, corre. Mira, que ya está abierto. Oh.
Dobby. ¡Hey, Dobby! Buenos días. Salí a pasear.
Not sure any of us had a good night's sleep. Maybe the dog did. It usually takes me a few days to get used to sleeping in my tent, and my body felt pretty wrecked in the morning.
Todo tiene su sitio.
Same for Álvaro.
Me llama la atención del bikepacking, que todo hay que comprimirlo.
But he had completed his first night camping out successfully, and with a change of pillow, he said he'd love to try again. We packed our bikes, made sure to leave no trace, and pushed back to the track with one clear goal in our heads: breakfast.
Vamos a desayunar. Tostadas. Café. Café. Croissant.
We hadn't seen a single person or car since the day before, so we felt it was safe enough to let Dobby run free beside us. He came to life and sprinted alongside us for kilometers, with what I could only interpret as a big smile on his face, and on mine too. Watching him like that made me genuinely happy, and helped strengthen our trust in him, knowing he would stay with the pack and still follow instructions when off the leash.
Dime que es para abajo. Aunque... ¿Hay 3 caminos? Mira, nos pone por allá, pero estos se unen, ¿no?
Sí, lo que pasa es que fíjate que si nosotros venimos de aquí, tenemos este para bajar, este de aquí.
I soon realized that, as much as this had been ticking a box for them, trying bikepacking and camping for the first time, it had also been ticking one for me. Having a dog has been one of my biggest wishes since I was a kid, but growing up, my parents didn't want the responsibility. And as an adult, I felt a dog would be incompatible with how often I travel. In a way, it still is, but it's also surprisingly easy to adapt.
Se van notando los kilómetros, ¿eh?
Yo estoy muy cansada, pero a Álvaro le parece muy divertido el camino.
Es una pasada. Pero agacha la cabeza. Dame. Mira, Dobby, tú agacha la cabecita, que si no... Es súper divertido. ¿Has visto cómo atajamos? Que tenemos hambre, que tenemos que llegar rápido a comer.
Y vamos a desayunar, vamos a comer ahora. La verdad, estamos pasando por debajo de la autopista. Está muy guay.
Sí, en lugar de por arriba.
Oye, aquí no hay café.
Te he engañado.
No hay café.
Que no, que está adelante, que solamente quedan unos kilometrillos.
Our ride ended in the scenic town of Peñíscola, a walled peninsula crowned by an imposing castle built by the Knights Templar and later used as a papal residence. It's a bit touristy these days, but that also meant restaurants were open early and could actually have lunch at midday, something we were deeply grateful for after riding all morning on an empty stomach. It's unreal how much joy a dog can bring, and I hope it goes both ways. I agree with Álvaro. Part of giving a dog the best life possible is taking them along with you on compatible adventures, sharing those moments and creating memories for us along the way.
Hemos estado varias horas en ayunas, casi. Por
La
media hora.
está haciendo ejercicio, ojo.
Ya,
Que no es
sí.
lo mismo, ¿eh?
Ujú. Está increíble, ¿no?
Se deshace.
And now that we know it worked out well, I hope to keep sharing experiences like this with both of them.